broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The sound of that can only mean one thing. It's Throwback Thursday, and we're here on AfterBuzz TV discussing The Prisoner, the 1967/1968 TV show, Episode 9, Checkmate, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the ladies, we have I Am Steph Z.
Hi, guys.
M. Placo, also known as Meredith Placo.
No, I'm just M. Placo.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's got a good ring.
M. Placo.
And back by popular demand and also his own free will.
That's right. It's I was able to choose.
There you go.
And come here because I wanted to be here.
That's right. I just get an email this
It's not
morning.
like being in the village.
Yes, it's
I
our
can
own
come
village.
and go as I please.
He sent an email this morning, checkmate, correct? And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's in. That's how this exchange happened. I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you.
The fans really took to you. Thank
you.
A lot of good stuff.
Thank
a great
you.
episode to talk about. We're talking about Checkmate, of course, but let's set up the rules as we always do. We'll try to avoid spoilers for other episodes, but if something slips, we apologize in advance. A lot of us have seen the episodes. Steph Z has not, so we'll try to be as diligent about that as possible. April 17th, we've been talking about this for a while. April 17th is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
What are you doing if you're not there?
I don't know,
Get
but
over there.
it's almost tomorrow there because it's like 8 p.m.
like
there.
right now.
It's
That's
like the
right.
night before. It's like have a drink and celebrate the night before right
And
now.
if you don't know what we're talking about, 6 of 1 Society is putting on an event at the Village, Port Marion, and Darren Nesbitt, number 2 from It's Your Funeral, is there as a guest speaker and things like that. It's just a fun event.
We're going next year.
Yeah.
You guys out there, we're going to do a contest. One of you can come with us. You'll have to pay your own way. But
And our way.
And
And our way.
In our way.
But you'll
just think
come.
how
Yeah.
proud you'll be
Yes.
to have won that.
We'll do a show there. You'll be a guest on our show.
We can go on a
Make it up
private
as-
jet. We
Yeah,
can all
you
go
can
on a private
totally-
jet. We're
if
totally
If you
Yeah.
can
You buy-
afford the
Yeah.
private jet,
We'll come.
go on a private jet.
So I hope The Rock is a huge fan of The Prisoner.
Right.
There you go.
I'm sure somebody is out
yeah.
there.
All right, let's start with general impressions of Checkmate, because this is one of those episodes. It takes symbolism and makes it so literal.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, let's start with you because you're always you're new to this.
The newbie.
The newbie, the rookie. Haha, rookie. See what I did there?
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, I just thought of it too. I didn't even prepare that. But I actually really like this episode. I actually like playing chess a lot. I know you might not guess that, but I used to play on a regular basis. So I do like chess. I do like the symbolism here. Of course, I have lots of crazy theories about this and numbers and picking up numbers. Like in the beginning, the queen didn't have a number. Then she finally had a number. So why did she not have a number? And then she didn't have a number. The rook never had a number. Like, there's a lot going on here with the numbers. Just saying.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Meredith.
Again, loved this episode as well. Little literal in the symbolism, but
Yeah.
it was really good because it, the whole show paints a picture of black and white, and this episode breaks things down in very black and white form. So it's one of just with McGoohan and Chafee on board with this one, but you can definitely see McGoohan's influence in directing because he definitely has a style and a feel that he wants to come across. And I think too, in terms of watching number 6 in this, we got to see him on top of his game.
Literally.
Yeah.
Curtis.
It was the strangest thing. Because I'm a great fan of the show, of course, but for the first time, I was watching this show maybe more critically than I used to because of this. The truth is that this show is not one of my favorite episodes. It is really there are some things about it that I sort of don't quite get. And it has to do mainly with the structure of the story rather than just the way that it's all put together and what motivates number 6 to do what he does and so forth. It seems a little messy to me, the way that this is put together. I'm not sure that I came out of it. There are things that I love about it. Yeah. And one of them, I'll start with the positive at the very top. One of the things is it's maybe the only show on the whole series that feels like it was designed as a comedy. It's actually a funny episode. I mean, deliberately funny, not unintentionally funny. And it's the scene, my favorite scene in the whole episode is the one with number 6 and the Queen in his room, where she's in his flat, where she's making him the hot chocolate, which is a delightful scene, and it's perfectly played by the both of them. And light comic acting is not something you associate with Patrick McGoohan, and ever. And yet he gets totally into it, and it's wonderful. I love that scene. He appears to be in a completely different area, when he actually smiles when he's holding her hand, and I mean, it's obvious there's always going to be the wall there, but it's the closest you get to an actual,
romance.
That's too much of a word.
Yeah.
But it's just light romantic banter sort of between the two of them.
Right.
I really love that. I love the Q&A psychological test, which he manipulates so brilliantly, and funny again. Another funny scene. So those were two of the things that I really liked about it. There were strange things that never seemed to lead anywhere. Like from the beginning, if it's all right for me to go into this, or do you want to keep going?
No, you're on a roll.
Okay, well, the like for example, very beginning, number 6 comes out. People are walking around. Rover appears, and everyone freezes. And everyone except this one man. Who walks by Rover like
the man with the stick.
The man with the stick, the cane.
The champion.
And he walks by like he doesn't even see Rover. And the whole thing is weird because it then goes to number 6, who's also not frozen. He's not down there with them, but this sense that Rover, it's not just people getting out of the way of Rover as it's bouncing down. They freeze. And except for the man with the stick and number 6, who also doesn't freeze. And so that strikes me as weird. I mean, like a little awkwardly set up. Like this is why he's going to follow the guy, because this guy is the one guy who doesn't freeze. But does everyone always freeze every time Rover is in the vicinity?
We haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever seen
It almost felt
that
like
dramatic effect.
But it almost felt like a game to me. Like almost, you have that, I don't know if it's freeze tag, but you have a children's game where everyone runs around and then you say freeze and everyone has to stop.
Right.
And that's kind of what I took away from it.
It does feel like it's set up for a reason.
Yeah.
Almost like, and of course, because it's the prisoner, you assume that this is all a game that's been set up in order to pull him into the game. So, which is exactly what he does. He follows the man. And then the man tells him this idea that he has, that everybody, you can determine who the prisoners are and who the warders are by your authority. So by that implication, this prisoner, apparently, is so authoritative in his behavior that he is able to determine this. And that whole theory, which 6 takes to immediately and experiments with, is weird. I mean, considering that he's, what is he trying to accomplish out of this? Does he really, is it that unusual a theory that it's something that never occurred to him before? What is the deal with that?
Well,
go on, hon.
hon.
For me, I feel like the deal with that, 'cause I feel like there's a couple things in there that we skipped over, was that he learned that other people had tried to escape. And that
Right.
he wasn't, I feel that maybe he felt that he was alone in trying to get out, that everyone else was not happy there. I don't know if that's the right word, but everyone else had fallen to the system.
Right.
So I felt from that interaction, what he got is that there are more people
Like him.
we're strength in numbers almost. There are more people that want to get out. So either A, he could use those people to create a distraction so that he could get out, or B, they could help him and they can all get out.
Well, here's the problem I have with that whole idea. I mean, I understand he's going around, he goes to the shopkeeper and he goes to the painter and all that and tries this attitude. Of course, with him, authoritative is not much of a difference from the way he usually is,
Right.
But he's doing the experiment. The thing that's weird about the fact that he takes all of these people into this plot is even though this feels like an early episode in the chronology, that I understand going after the Rook because of the Rook's unusual situation.
Right.
But when you start going after these other people that he doesn't know at all, and he's drawing them into this for whatever reason, whether it's to create a distraction or to escape with him and help him escape, I don't understand the theory behind that, because what he's doing is open. Every person you bring into a plot leaves you open to have it thwarted every time you do it. If he was just going for the Rook, who, by the way, is the only person who really helps him,
Right.
He appears to be the only one who make the machine that he needs to make to get the...
Right.
So I understand why he would bring him into it, but the other people, what's the point?
Well, and this is something I have a problem with number 6 throughout the series is, for someone as smart as he is, he makes a lot of very dumb decisions. Like, to even trust the Rook from the get-go, this man shouldn't be as trusting. Like, watching it from an outsider's perspective, you see that he's led into all of this from the get-go. And the fact that he's willing to put so much faith in it either tells me, like, he truly is broken because he's just kind of at every given turn trying to find a way out. But, as you said, him opening the door to the other pawns, essentially, to be a part of the plot.
When he doesn't need them.
Yeah. Unless he was going to use them as pawns for later on in the episode, which he never does, you know.
Well, for me, the kind of resounding thing is that we've tried to make everything about one side or the other, right? And this is the one episode that takes that and says, you can't just have dichotomies of things. Because the one, in just the way he's identifying people, authoritative and subversive, he's authoritative, he's the man with the stick. And that's ultimately what leads him to his downfall. Is the fact that the Rook is like, wow, you're exactly like these other people, and you're doing this to me. So much so that if you really want to look at it, he's now, in terms of the purpose of the other people, it's almost like he's playing into the village's plan, because here he's revealed all the rebels and brought them directly to number 2, go to prison. Go directly to jail, do not collect $200 type of thing.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I think, the other feeling that I had about the show overall, the episode overall, was that real sense of it being a chess game.
Right.
But the game is between number 6 and number 2, as number 2 winds up making the checkmate at the end. When it's revealed that he's in the room with the Rook.
Right.
With a chess piece, basically. Right. And every move that they've made up until that point has been, one move for the number 6, another piece taken by number 2. It goes that way throughout, which is really well done, and so on. And I kind of like that. But that was another overall feeling about the thing.
Speaking of the Rook, I mean, was there a foreshadow of it to you guys? Because, when they're talking, their initial reaction, he says, he's very by his rules and kind of does what he wants. He wanted to give away the technology, whatever it may be, to the other side, so they can have peace and, through idiotic
to all sides.
Yeah, idiotic
Everybody should
bureaucracy.
have it.
Got it. And so to me, if you look at it in hindsight, that should have been a foretelling that this guy does not care about sides, and he'll do whatever, and to me, it's almost like chaos theory.
Well, he's certainly a character who is weak, and he starts out apparently strong because he makes this statement. And that's another reason why I feel like this is an early story in the chronology, because these kinds of things I feel are so obvious that after a little more time he would be more inured to them than he is here.
Right.
Yeah.
And at this point, when that rook moves himself on the board as a statement, not waiting for orders, it's a great dramatic move, and it's one that would tip him off instantly later on in the series. He would just be, it's really funny because, I mean, he says in the last episode, one of the things he said in the last episode was, never trust a woman. And the truth is, I think that had to do more with other things than it did. I mean, he never appears to have a problem with the Queen, who you would assume is the person he should be concerned about.
But he was able to solve that.
Well, he figured out what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He figured out what that was, but he was more open to her, even under the circumstances or before. He was, when they're just talking on the chessboard, he was a little more open to her for some reason. I don't know why. I don't think it was attraction.
No,
or
I
anything,
wonder if maybe because he sensed early on that there had been something. There was maybe almost like an affectionate, but not an attraction affectionate, like almost like he felt. I don't want to say feel bad because he never really feels bad for anyone, but I think he kind of saw her for what she was as a real pawn, and that he wanted to help her in some way because he
does
definitely
have that about him. He's got that
motherly, nurturing.
I was thinking knight and almost knight.
Yeah, that makes more sense
than maternal. But that idea that he may not trust women, but he's always open to helping them if he feels they need help.
I mean, interestingly enough, in terms of a pawn, he can only, just even kind of in that way, he can only go one step at a time. A knight can obviously jump spaces, and each of the other pieces has their various moves, but he can go one at a time.
Yeah,
until he gets to his destination.
Anyway, but I think that part of it, we have just seen in the previous. I don't know what the original order is. I can never remember what the original order is.
This was filmed as episode 3, but aired as episode 9.
Yeah, but there were a lot of episodes that were episode 3. I mean, it was certainly in that area. There were a bunch of them that could have been that. So if it was filmed then that suggests to me that it was written in that way. It was, then it's released as 9, by which time he's already made, this transition where he's more suspicious and more canny to what's going on around him. But it just seems like, as much as there are things that I like about it, there are things about this episode which feel awkward in the setup, which is unusual for the show. It doesn't feel...
My only complaint with that is the two different stories seem like such divergent. The escape and the chess game, they didn't really play well. Like I felt that one was forced into the other, and I felt that this could have easily been two different plot lines entirely for two different episodes.
Can I make one more point? They're coming to me because I'm not organized enough to write things down. But a couple of things. Funny coincidence, because I'm a Sherlockian. I don't know if you... And one of the things that struck me about this was there was a Sherlock Holmes film, one of the Universal ones in the 40s, with Basil Rathbone made, called Sherlock Holmes Faces Death, which featured at the climax a chess game played by people on a large chessboard that Holmes was manipulating. But what was interesting to me was when I remembered that, I was thinking of that movie. That took me to the next thing, which was that movie was based on a short story called The Musgrave Ritual. And The Musgrave Ritual is a question and answer thing exactly like what starts off all of these shows. it becomes, whose was it? He who is gone. Who will it belong to? He will come. It's a whole thing that reads exactly like the opening dialogue between 6 and 2, whoever the 2 is, and it has nothing to do with it. I'm sure it's just it tickled me that there were those connections between Sherlock Holmes.
Well, it's interesting, kind of weird, this whole episode to me, as we're talking about it, again, it's just the number 2 sticks out, and, one or the other. And so let's start with this idea of chess, right? And what it fully symbolizes, because you have the chess pieces, and you can argue that they're the villagers, but then who are the players? Is that symbolic of number 1? Is it symbolic of God? Where does it, what's ultimately the comparison there?
I mean, for me, it was very much one literal, yes, not just the villagers are the chess pieces, but people in general are pawns of their country. And I looked at it from a global idea that, you are always going to be behooving to someone else's machinations. And at the end of the day, do you really have free will? And that's how I looked at it.
It's so funny because, for me, I was looking at it that, yes, you start as the pawn, but, the pawn, we think of the pawn as, maybe the weakest piece, or a lot of people have that generalization. But if you think about it, if the pawn does take those steps and get to the end, they can trade in and get any player. So for me, it was a little bit like you, and again, but you have that own power to be kind of however you want.
But here's the interesting part. They couldn't, the moves were announced to them and they would move, number 1. But
I'm saying, not that they could have done it in this game, but inevitably that's what's possible.
I get what you're saying, but in terms of the show, that's how it was. And then for the most part, right, how many episodes have we seen where the loudspeaker tells the villagers what to do? We have elections this week. We have a dance this week. We have to go do this. And it's like, we're all happy because we get to do this. And until they're told, they do not do it.
Right.
And then to me, that was an interesting comparison.
Another thing is, who are the men who are playing this game, and are they prisoners? Are they trustees of the village, of the system? Are they warders? I don't think that is ever entirely. And there's this weird story about the man with the stick, belonging to a royal family and coming from nobility. And here he is up on the raised chair there's another person on a raised chair. We don't know if he's descended from nobility. But what was the point of even bringing that up? It never goes anywhere.
Here's the thought. There was a line there that chess is therapeutic. And if you take it in this scenario, all it means is you have the literal ability to control people. And if that's your definition of therapeutic, is just power over people, then that's exactly what you seek, and you can argue that's what the village wants and everything else.
I wonder
if they change also. It's whoever. If 2 people decide, let's play a game of chess, and we've seen people play chess on regular boards as well. That's a common sight at the village. But you can imagine being in a place like this and 2 people say, hey, let's play the big board tomorrow. And because 2 people are playing the board, everybody has to join in, because that's your job. You have to have a complete set of chess people.
I wonder if the noble monologue piece was a little less part of the show, but more cultural interpretation, where in the 60s you really start to realize how irrelevant the monarchy is, and that democracy, at least through the parliament, is taking shape. And I wonder if that's just a cultural aspect of the time. That's this is something Downton Abbey touches on in the 20s and 30s, that the nobility is kind of falling out of place. So what else do you have to do other than sit around and play chess, because you're really not a master of anything? In fact, you're somebody else is your master now. So I took that as more of a cultural statement versus something actually from the show.
Yeah, it's certainly readable that way. It's just
But why?
Because it never goes anywhere is the question. It never really.
I just think a lot of this episode was poorly edited.
I think that's true.
Yeah, I think they shot a lot and edited.
And maybe lost stuff.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible.
Here's the knowing. I don't think they shot a lot. So it's kind of. I have a quick overview of it, right? It's the 3rd episode filmed. Don Chaffee gets the directing credit, but McGoohan did a lot of the interiors. There's a rule, apparently, I did not know this actually. If you film over 51% of it as the director, you get solo credit. And that's why he was the only one billed. And you know, the original ending had number 2 on the boat rather than the reveal.
Yeah. Right.
So in terms of changes from script to that, there weren't that many. It just... I get the frustrations, but I don't think it's because they left stuff off, they overshot or anything like that.
It isn't so much an overshoot as it is just an edit.
Yeah.
You know, that the edit does not make the story clear.
Right.
And there are some things which seem like they're valid and a good idea, but they never really pay off in the long run. You know, ultimately is he wants to get out. He builds something to get himself off of the island, and he doesn't make it, which is exactly what happens in numerous episodes. That's the basic plot. What makes it different is the chess idea in the one and the relationship with the queen.
And then he
in
recruited
the other.
others.
Yeah.
And another thing which I find strange about this episode is Peter Weingard, who plays number 2, who is one of my favorite English character actors from that period. I adore Peter Weingard. And he was in all of those shows at the time and in movies as well. Terrific actor and great, funny actor, too. And for some reason, number 2 in this episode, really, there's nothing for him.
Well, what was the whole... He was very disciplined, right? He gets the phone call, and he says, I told you not to be disturbed.
Because he's meditating. And
I get that part of it, but
he was
where did
meditating
that
to do
go?
karate.
Yeah.
Which was
Yeah.
like, what?
I mean,
At first,
I actually
Whatever.
have like a hole in my memory of number 2. He doesn't, when I think back from, and I watched this on Monday night, when I think back, I don't see number 2 in my
you don't see that
recap.
eyeliner he had on?
I know.
And by the way, Peter Weingard always has the eyeliner.
Yeah.
He
Oh, wow.
always does. And he, I don't know what the deal is with that, but he is a really gifted comic actor, you know, and a good, and was a star.
He seemed a little naive to me in this one.
It isn't even that so much as why it is that, I mean, especially coming off of Mary Morris last week, but even, you know, Leo McKern and some of the other ones who were so present, and it was script trouble, because he doesn't do anything exceptional. He doesn't, I mean, aside from smashing the board, which comes from nowhere, but just even in his scenes with number 6, it's just not very interesting.
Well, I understood the Pavlovian response, you know, with the rook and things like that, but he even gets the animals mixed up, and was he trying to demean dogs, you know, because he kept saying rats, right? And
he only does it once, but it's really funny when he does. He says Pavlov's experiments with animals, and 6 says dogs, and then he says when he was doing, it was rats, wasn't it? I mean, it's like he starts talking to continue, and then he gets it wrong. He said it was rats, dogs.
Yeah.
Like, and
Fabulous.
did you read the script? Is that scripted, or was that
Or is that-
completely...
that's in there.
It's in the
Wow.
script. I mean, it's just.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's such a strange little.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's right. That's right. That was funny.
You know, and I get it visually. We've already seen sort of rats, and we've always talked about rats, and rats are much more sort of, you know, you test them more for things rather than dogs. But obviously, it was dogs.
But
that
it
were
was
part of
reference to a specific, you know,
Yeah.
actual
Pavlov's.
experiment.
But it's funny.
I gotta say, I mean, just the scene with the rook actually going through this, and the way I thought he played it amazing, with just kind of stumbling around all
with the
thirsty.
water coolers. Yeah. That was well done.
That was some definitely comedic stuff right there. Let's see, you know, and I thought in terms of, you know, we've kind of touched upon this, but I thought, you know, it wasn't so much that the rook did an illegal move, which he couldn't move the way he did.
Yeah.
It was the fact that he did it
Without being told.
Yeah. And
Well,
that-
it's the what they refer to as the cult of individuality. Is that it?
Yeah.
What they say.
But if you notice, when the rook does, to me, I read that as there's something else going on. Only when we see at the end, when he crosses back across the chessboard, he does the straight rook move. So he was whether or not later in the show, you know what I mean? Like, we can, because, I mean, have we all concluded he did this on purpose? Like,
Yeah.
we all agree with that, right?
The
The
Rook.
Rook.
Yeah. This move.
Sure.
To make,
But what is the but
to get number 6 to get number 6, I mean, even look at the photo that we've got up. It's like number 6 is like, who's that guy? But clearly the Rook is working with number 2.
You think so?
What do you mean?
I don't think from the get-go.
I don't think from the get-go.
I'm not sure either, because I'll tell you, when he makes that, but think about who that guy is now. That move was something that 2 would do. 2 would do it just to provoke people. And what this guy does is he not only makes the move without being told, he pushes someone out of the way in order to do it. Physically pushes someone out of the way to make his move.
Right, but I totally saw that when we see at the end that the Rook is revealed with number 2 and that they've set that
He's been manipulated
yeah.
by 2.
That's
Right, but-
that's after the experiments. I think he deliberately did that move to get 6's attention.
But I don't think so, because they deliberately did that, and I could be wrong. Totally could be wrong. But how I saw it was he did that move, and then to reinforce to number 6 that he was an individual, because why else would they bring number 6 to show him the testing where they make it so that they think that he's on the same page?
I think
you know what I mean?
Did
Like
that as a scare tactic to be like, this could be you, because they're so afraid to go the distance when experimenting on 6, and I think they use a lot of it to.
right, but if he did it on his own will, then why would he not have been quote unquote fixed? Like, why would he do it on his own will, then get this scare tactic, and then, you know what I mean,
we'll talk
get this
about-
treatment? Like, to me, that doesn't line up.
Well, let's talk about the psychology in one moment. But
Okay.
speaking of, I think he's given the
Oh, yeah,
title.
okay.
No, but he's given the title of a Rook, right? And so,
Right.
But in many ways, it's almost like it's a scapegoat in many ways. You how many times do, especially in the mafia, someone gets a grand title so that way when push comes to shove, they can take the hit for it. Right? And so in this regard, I think he is just ultimately a pawn in this game. He doesn't know which way he's going, and he's manipulated, ultimately back to number 2, but I don't think he has any knowledge of it.
Oh, I do.
I don't know. I think he's...
I think that it's something...
Because he says it. He says, again.
What does he say?
At the end, when he's with number 2, he says... Like, he tells him, like, you convinced me just like them. You acted like just one of them. So how was I supposed to think you were anything different? So I read into that from however long he's been there, he's seen how they've treated him. Therefore, he's gotten on their side and saw this guy was treating...
But see, even
Like, it all
number
came
2
around
comes
full
in,
circle
But
to
number
me.
2 comes in and says to the Rook that no, you betrayed. Like he was on your side and you betrayed him. Like he rubs that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that as well, but I don't know. I just felt that...
I think, you know what? I think that one of the problems here is not that your ideas are wrong. I think that it's confusing in the way the whole episode is set up. Because
Right.
take it this way. When I said that what Rook does is what number 6 would be expected to do,
Right.
especially when you talk to the guy and you find out why he's there. And 6 says, why are you here? And he said, well, I developed this, defense system that I wanted to give to all nations so everyone could have it and there would be peace. And this is the guy who suddenly makes this dramatic physical statement of going against all the rules. Technically, I suppose you could say he was going against the rules when he wanted to give this to everyone, but the reason was for peace. And there's nothing about him. He seems a very weak man. Mm-hmm. You can't imagine why somebody like that would make a move like that. And it's one of the things that doesn't work for me. Because with 6, if it was a different person, if he was there for a different reason, that he was one of those guys like 6 who, fought back constantly and was trying to, you could understand that, but he just doesn't the actor doesn't seem like that.
Yeah, it is a bad motivation. If you're a weak subservient character, why would you suddenly
do
break
that?
Yeah, that's a really great observation.
But I think, I think in that, maybe they're mirroring history. Whatever history that there's been so much about, betrayals and things like that. So, just pick which war or whatever you want to kind of maybe based that off of. And then shoot, what was the other thing?
It was just weird for me too, their interaction on the beach, that no one saw him going in and out, bringing things in and out.
Yeah, I know.
Really, that was why that added to the fact of like, okay, well they know what he's doing already, because how would they miss that?
And I'm sorry.
How is it that the audio isn't working now? There's just so many things.
That was a great one.
That's
a great
That's
one.
why I thought that they're in on it anyway, so they're not freaking out. Was it really just like, oh, the camera's not working? Oh, the audio's not working.
Right.
Oh, he's totally fine, and he can just go sit in a beach hut and build a freaking getaway. It was just all
like no one's going to go into that beach.
Right, there was just,
hut.
I guess maybe the reason where I got to my conclusion is because there was so many things kind of overlooked, so I assumed that they knew what was going on.
I think
Maybe
they're
they just
overlooked
didn't.
because it's just bad writing
it
job.
felt like
Maybe
lazy
I was
writing.
giving him a little bit too much because I didn't feel that, and I get to like now episode 9 I'm so into it, and again you guys have seen the whole thing, so for the first time it's a little bit different. Not that I wasn't into it weeks in the past, but now I'm just like ready to watch every week, but I gave them the benefit of the doubt that they knew that, rather than what you guys are saying, that it was just
And here's the inherent problem,
which is probably possible, but
the inherent problem too, just even in the story as the characters, a chess game, everyone knows the rules, and now you're trying to do this. You don't know the game piece, the overall setup. You don't know the pieces and who's who, and so yes, that's part of the fun, but it's also part of what brings number 6 down, is because you can't identify these elements of the quote unquote game. And so, and for
me too, it was like the castle. Usually, you can. I mean, with the rook, you can do the castle move. I'm like, so he's working with somebody. I just took it.
Yeah, but the in order for you to perform the castle move, you have to the rook has to be in the right position on the board in relation to other pieces to make that work. You can't just make it. It's not like checkers where you get to the end and you automatically get what you want.
No, I get that, but what I was saying, like for me, what I took away from that was that the rook, in order to do something, usually isn't working alone. That they, with someone else's help, they can do a bigger move.
No, but usually the rook works on its own as much as anybody else does. It's only in that case that it's able to make that change. But basically, it's just the way it moves, back and forth and back and forth. That's it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just that's a great point, though. The audio, where that really jumped out at me was the one where he's sitting with the rook at the table, and he starts by talking. He starts by talking, and then he. I guess he detects one of the statuettes, the statues moving, and so he then immediately starts talking about the game, like they're not actually talking about plotting.
Yeah,
and then he stops
and
goes back to talking about the game.
And where number 2 is just like, no. Oh, we trust him. Like, I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen a scene like that in this whole series. So I was just like, okay, he's got to know.
But that's
like, he's got to know.
I just felt this number 2 was just ignorant. I just felt he was ignorant of the game. And I that was weird. Like, how did number 6 pick up? Like, he just knew exactly. It's like, I felt number 6 was working more with the village at that point.
And what I thought, which was crazy, was why they gave the queen this necklace that was like a pulse rate detector. I thought for sure that was going to be an audio recorder to just stay close enough to him so you can hear what he's plotting or planning to do. Heart rate thing so that we see her heart rate getting, but like when they're close, what does her being close have to, I was just like, what is happening
Well, I think the idea was actually, that was how they determined that it was working. The idea was that it would actually be she refers to it, the psychologist refers to it as a, what's the word? I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, but the idea was that you always know where he is because of her.
Right, because they
Because it's always-
brainwashed her that he loves her.
Right,
He gave
and
her
so
that.
she's. I mean, it's
But that's
embarrassing.
like-
I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
It
it's
was-
like they gave him a dog
Yeah.
with a collar, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
That's a
little
good way to
bit
look at
creepy.
it was a
the
little
whole
bit
thing.
creepy. Yeah.
Um,
And I thought she was going to poison him when she gave him the hot chocolate.
I did too, and he drank it without even a thought.
Yeah.
And he's already been poisoned once in that way, or maybe that's
Twice.
Maybe
Three times.
Twice,
technically
three times,
that.
yeah.
that is
Let's talk
already
about interventionist psychology, right? And I feel like Meredith, she's going to go off on this topic. The idea that you can cure something out of somebody, right? Very prevalent in this time, and that's what they're
It's
doing with the
still in
rough.
certain circles. Some people seem to think that.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not
Generally, when it
true.
comes into
Standing
the
back.
religion side of things.
Yes.
Standing down.
Okay. Sorry, I have a lot of issue with this sort of idea that you can just pick up a person and cure them.
Yeah.
Using basically electrocution and behavioral therapy. Sorry, go on. There's
Or the
more,
Bible.
Yeah, or the Bible.
No, I actually wanted to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, I'm just here to kind of introduce the topics, but yeah, I mean, you know, so we get that with the Rook. You could argue that they're doing that with number 8, the White Queen,
The White Queen, yeah.
and
Which
all
is
that.
2 + 6.
And well, but we've seen number 8s like
A lot.
That's a rotating role for that role.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting that they bring this sort of psychology in at this time because given kind of like what I know, I don't actually remember how prevalent this was in the 60s because I studied a lot more with like how they used LSD in the time, but it's just what bothers me is it shows that it works, at least on her account.
But did it work?
No,
I would
No,
argue
I guess
no.
you're right.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean?
I mean, certainly not in a significant way.
I mean, I think it's just a science fiction trope
Yeah.
where you can brainwash somebody into believing something with post-hypnotic suggestion and all that, and that I think that's one. I understand what you're talking about, but I think that's one that we are sort of expected to just give them because it's the idea of that kind of advanced, brain manipulation is something that you would accept from this show at this time in this genre, right?
The only thing that bothered me is that, especially because given last week's episode was so female empowerment, was that the weak character who this should have worked on, the Rook, he still kind of broke free in his own way, but it worked. They played into that. And again, it's the 60s. It's very tropey. I don't expect let's have a progressive show from this time period. It just worked so well on the Queen. And I kind of felt like out of nowhere. And that was just, that's just me being me in the way I think, that I'm like, oh, I wish it hadn't worked as well on her. Because I didn't like, when you made the dog reference, I hadn't thought about that, but she really does just follow around like a lost puppy.
She does. I mean, but I mean, you go with the idea that was something that was imposed upon her, and even though it's ridiculous, and we know it's ridiculous, it is an accepted scientific trope.
It is, and it plays out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing with this episode. There's nothing really new or innovative.
Weird thing is that you never see her. After that,
Yeah, her
takes the
storyline is
necklace.
left.
Yeah,
she disappears from the story.
I just assume they
in
collected
the
her.
Vegas sense, let me ask you this, and this can go. I'm interested to see your thoughts. The idea, right? They said love is destructive, but if you kind of look at it, can you, forget that maybe she's brainwashed, but is it almost liberating because for the first time ever, she's doing things that would normally break. She's stealing the car just to follow him and all these different things. So she's doing things that she's hasn't done before, and so is that liberating or is it destructive?
Well,
Just
Because
from
it's
that,
not
there's-
real love.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not, if it's liberating if it's real. Like she's almost like a dog being
She is.
told what to
That's-
do.
And this
Yeah.
is the most self-destructive form of I wouldn't even say love. I'd say
Obsession.
Yeah, obsession
Yeah.
and possession. I mean, this is kind of what you worry about of people on the internet who write you like, I'm going to find you in your hotel room tonight. Like it's not love. And I wonder if that plays into Six's sympathies for her.
I don't think he has sympathy for her.
He seems
I
to
think-
white knight her a little.
I feel like he's just trying to use her.
I think one of my fears with number 6 is that he's very alone, and it's not.
But he's okay with that.
He is, but he's okay with that. But yes, it's by design, but it's because he's to a degree he's not a likable guy.
It's true.
I don't know how else to say it.
He isn't.
No.
And you could never make a series like this today. Even in England, I don't think you could make a series where you have someone so rigid and so unlikable.
They did with Sherlock.
Yeah, but he's got.
He has Watson,
there's a
yeah,
couple
I
of
know.
things. You do
Yeah.
have some charm to
That's
that character,
true.
and you have Watson.
Okay,
and,
that's fair.
it's not one
Yeah.
person. This guy is just so unlikable, and and he's not funny usually, and he's just this. I love him,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking from television perspective, from industry perspective,
Yeah.
it would be very difficult to buy this.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, he would need a flaw or something.
He would need something
Yeah.
to lighten that.
Yeah.
Something.
could
Even House had that.
That's true.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
Wilson.
love House too.
Me
I know.
too. And but it was House had humor,
And he had romance with Cuddy.
and he had romance.
Yeah. He had
so
Cuddy.
yeah.
And you could argue here, his flaw is that he's one of the most, you guys kind of hint at it every week. He's a very unsuccessful spy. At least
wonder he retired himself. He kind of sucks at his job, apparently.
Well, we don't know that
I know.
though. Why do we think that?
That's just my interpretation is that he chose to quit. I don't think he actually sucks at his job. I think he was probably a brilliant spy. I don't know. Then that's why I have so much frustration. But this is me imposing Danger Man
Right.
as a precursor,
Right.
and that's completely how I choose to view the series.
It's reasonable.
Yeah.
That's a very reasonable mistake
Yeah.
to make, and I think that it's one that maybe we talked about this
Yeah.
a little last week. There may be more to that than Patrick McGoohan ever let on.
Could it be almost a mistake of the Village in thinking that he is a better spy than he is? That we've kind of
Well, I
seen
think-
that throughout
I think
of
the
them wanting more information than is given to him. It's like, no, it could be the simple answer that you're just not accepting.
But that's what I've said. I don't think it has to do with how good or he wasn't was his previous job. Is the Village just simply doesn't accept what's given in front of them. Like he says, no, I've retired, I quit, I as a choice of conscience.
Well, yeah,
And
it's
they
like,
just-
and it's like the mafia where you don't get to quit.
Yeah.
And if you, especially during what was still the Cold War, you don't just say, by the way, I'm out of here, goodbye, thanks.
Yeah.
He's killed people for them. He's done unspeakable things. Who knows what he's done?
What's crazy to me is that at this point in time, they've got so many experiments. They've got so many quote unquote mad scientists trying. And so many people manipulated. Why at this point in time have they not been able to manipulate him to get this information?
Because they said so last week,
They
is that
don't
they
wanna
don't break him. Yeah,
Right,
he's
but-
too valuable to them.
But they're clearly, I don't know, there's more episodes left, but they're clearly not getting, I feel like every episode would start at the same point.
Yeah. Well, and when you look at this, as the viewing order versus the filming order.
That's what's,
That's what's really confusing. I would love to get, I have to remember to do this, just a list of the filming order to see where they, because as you say, this is so early that these kinds of flaws and these kinds of mistakes, they're probably due more than anything to just the early stages of, if this was the third one filmed, it was being written at the same time the second one or first one was being done.
Right.
And I don't
But
know
if this was the third one being filmed, at the third one in, was he so, wasn't he running for office then? You know what I mean? He
the
wasn't
thing.
so into participating with the
They also
Village.
took
So
very
in this,
good
he's
ideas.
completely participating.
Here's the thing. For even no matter what order you want to put them in, they started. Each of these episodes has a nugget of an idea, and then it goes off of that. I don't think it's building upon the next.
Right.
That was never the
Only
thought.
from the standpoint that it's handy to know where he was in episode 3 as filmed when you get to episode 8 and you try to look for some kind of an arc.
Right.
And that's what I instinctively do, is to look for the arc of that character. And he's the only character you can follow an arc. And it's very confusing when episode 3 was filmed. When episode 3 was filmed, we saw it as episode 9. which throws all of your arc right out the window because
Right.
it doesn't make sense anymore.
And also, there's never any time in between each episode. We don't know how long, like, he could have been here
Exactly.
2 days, he could have been there 6 months. So we
Right.
don't have an idea of how long he's been on
Right.
the island or the village at this point.
Right.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it makes it tough to follow when you're trying to look at it.
Well,
very
all we're
critically.
doing is what
I
he
know.
wanted us to do.
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, this was the great thing about him is that the reason he wouldn't answer any questions is because he liked people getting all messed up trying to figure out what he was trying to do,
Right.
what he was trying to say. It was he succeeded beyond his wildest dreams in creating, a 19 episode, show which, 40 years later we're still, sitting here.
Yeah.
How many shows can you really say that about? Not
Yeah.
many.
No.
A lot of happy mistakes.
Yeah.
A lot of happy accidents happened in this show.
It gets into that area where you look at the flaws of something which they were doing as product. I mean,
Right.
he had his own idea about it, but basically television is product. He wanted to maybe do more, but they're still going, we have to get this shot today, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
And whatever winds up getting lost in the process, we look at as clues. And they look at as, well, we didn't get that shot,
Right.
I mean,
True. Such is life, though.
I mean, they
That's the
reuse,
fun part.
Yeah.
They reuse so many shots from Arrival for the beach scene, and just the day and night stuff. It's
Oh,
just
and how
forget
about-
episode order.
Yeah.
Day and
Yeah.
night, just in general.
It
You're like,
doesn't-
wait, is it
it's
day? Is it
all
night?
over the
Yeah.
place.
Where we
You know
are.
what stood out to me, and I don't know why this stood out to me, but it seemed odd to me that when they were at the beach, when there was that puddle, there was like a piece of wood over the puddle. The puddle was not big, so why it was did you send?
Yeah, it was probably to like roll a camera gear or
Maybe
something
that.
around. But yeah, it was like, why
It was
is
like,
this?
why is
Yeah.
the wood there?
No, we've seen that
and
before.
then at
but
first I was like, is it because someone like walking on water? Like I know
No,
that sometimes
or
I take
maybe
it a
it's just
step
like
too far.
dirty debris that washes up.
But yeah, like it wasn't like the wood was over. There was nowhere to cross. It was just like a puddle.
Or do you-
and there was like wood
But
across
here's the
it.
thing, right? It's the whole notion of a gentleman taking on in
Yeah.
cartoons, putting it down on the water, and where for me the villagers are so, what's a word?
Aware.
Not aware, but they're so prim and proper.
Yeah,
I don't even know if
yeah.
that's the word, but like of
Classy.
course they can't walk on that water. They have to walk on
But
top
like very
of it.
also
easy,
be
they could have
for-
walked around.
well, it could also be for the tide. Maybe
Yeah,
when the
but that-
tide comes in.
That's too much effort.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It saw that and I was like, it's odd.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but
I'm
that's,
glad you saw it too.
I
wasn't
did.
alone.
I
I
was
don't
like-
know.
It's the woman's detail eye.
Yeah.
I saw it too. I just didn't make anything of it.
Yeah, I mean,
until now.
Yeah.
sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
I'm telling you, this is like how I view fine art from the Middle Ages. It all relates to Jesus being crucified on the cross. It's all art ever interpreted.
Wow.
That's interesting.
No, that was like what literally that was my final thesis for my art history class in college. Is I wrote all about how like every art interprets back to that.
Wow, that's really interesting. Huh.
Speaking of things, let's
Speaking
Yeah.
of crucifixion,
So yeah,
let's talk about the Polotska, and
man.
Oh, how?
let's start with you guys. You guys seem to
Okay,
have
so
opinions already.
obviously the ship was part of the village's thing, but it seemed like number 2 was ignorant of it until just kidding, you thought the Palaska was gonna be your ticket to out of here. No, they're with us. God, now that I'm going back and actually talking about this episode, I'm reasserting how my whole feelings on it, and I'm kind of like, it was just too well. It was too well placed. Everything. It was just too. You're right, Steph. Everything was too well put in place.
Here's the thing. I mean, is it a fact of when you look at it? It's to me. I know everyone loves The Sixth Sense, and spoiler alert. It's almost actually not, but it's a matter of aren't we clever filmmakers that we hid this fact from you rather than it being almost like a revelation, right? So in the case of this, it's like look at this bit of information we were able to hide from you as an audience rather than look how clever number 2 is.
What is the piece of information?
Yeah, what's
That-
clever?
The fact that, well, because they're manipulating us as the audience by having the whole number 2 interact with, hey, there's a distress, there's Mayday, and all this stuff.
Right.
But again, is he? It's almost like
Well,
he's still
it's-
only playing that off for the audience purposes rather than for number 6's purposes or anyone else.
Yeah, because number 6 wasn't privy to any of that, so I almost felt cheated at the end because I'm like, it wasn't. I'm like, you're just throwing us for a loop just so you can be like, just kidding, we were here, and I'm like, it was unnecessary for how smart this show can be. I don't know. I take back that I like this episode.
No, don't.
No,
don't
I
say
mean,
that,
no, it's
but-
fine. No,
I love
but
this episode.
but
I
it's-
love when it spins me out.
I just
It
it's
doesn't
like,
make sense.
Because normally I'll talk to my boyfriend about it because I'll have him watch it with me, and we didn't watch it together, so I didn't have that pre-critical thought. So
Aw.
no, it's fine. I still love the series.
I mean,
just
the thing about the ship is that, and forgive me if I'm wrong, because my recollection was that there is a moment in which, when he's talking about it to the Rook says something to the effect of, he says, I'm going to send out a distress call, and the Rook says, they're going to pick it up.
he knew.
And he says that. So that's out there.
Right.
And then, sure enough, the ship shows up, and it's their ship. So they did pick it up. I mean, he actually gives this unimportant character, essentially, a line which tips off the audience that the ship that is ultimately going to show up is going to be the wrong ship. And he's going to be whining. I don't have a problem so much with the idea that when he gets on the ship, it's the the number 2 is there, and it's just coming back again the same way it always does, because I think that's a method that they are counting on to break him eventually. That every time he gets a little away, it's the mafia thing. They pull him back. And so that is, I understand that. It's a way of breaking him without breaking.
I just felt the scene in control room was a little unnecessary.
Well, I mean, it was just a big way. It was a way to get a fist fight at the end of the show to make it feel like something's going on.
Which I think that's whenever I like in episodes, whenever McGoohan punches people.
Fist fights are good. The fighting scenes are awesome.
That's why I love
Guy
Daredevil.
flight out the window.
Yeah.
It's weird though. I mean, if you look at the green screen, that there are times where you can see sky, and then there are angles where it's just the green screen.
Yeah. And
It's just. Did you notice this?
Yeah.
I wasn't paying as much
in the
to that.
intercut.
Yeah,
between
you can see it
angles.
like flashes at you almost.
Suddenly, there you see that there are no clouds. It's just
Yeah.
like
the green screen.
Yeah, or I read it as they were in a soundstage. It looked like to me.
Well,
yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh well, you can't have it all. They're learning. This is where they're building this technology in this show.
No. It's just it just
But
it's weird because in some of the angles
They're really
you see it,
and then
in others you don't.
So do
see
you think
it.
they filmed it at
It was
two
just a
different...
mistake?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of that is just working too fast. I think these are mistakes that are being made that are natural mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's and it doesn't bother me even. I like this episode. I like the White Queen. I think she's charming, and there's some funny stuff in the episode. I just don't think it's as well put together as most of the other episodes are.
Speaking of the White, Steph, any references you can gather from the White Queen back to Disney or whatever you always
aren't
go
all
to?
the queens white in Disney?
Jasmine?
Oh.
Kinda?
All right.
Yeah, maybe.
She never. She. Well, it's like,
I'm
not
just-
really.
Yeah.
She's not a queen though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she's. Aren't they all princesses then anyway?
No, you can't get your princesses and your queens mixed up, man. Two different things.
Messed up, Phil.
But how does this? Can I ask you a question?
Yes. Uh-oh.
How does this fit in to the idea that this is all in his head?
Well, I was trying to keep that to me this episode just to see, but I still feel, as I was watching, because we talked so much about it last episode, I do still feel that it can all be just him.
Here's, I think part of the, going to your earlier point, part of the show fun towards the audience is negating all these theories, right? Because you look at science, and if we all, everyone in the world, every person just saw, like, let's say a black duck, we can sort of safely assume that all ducks are black. And then at the end of all of this, let's say, research, here comes a white duck. And we all throw down our pens and we're like, well, that's wrong. Because now there's a white duck. So, you know what I mean? So each episode kind of builds you up to this one theory. And then, it doesn't ultimately matter the episode order that you watch. It just, next episode, out the window with whatever.
Yeah. There was a couple things that stood out for me in this episode. I did, as like we were talking about, I did definitely feel that it could still be falling back to that it's his own head game and that it's him versus himself. Not just because of that. Two things that stuck out to me that we didn't touch on was, I think is maybe one of my favorite lines I've ever heard. Are we ready? Mm-hmm. I'm waterproof. A slight drizzle won't wash away my doubt. That was amazing. Like when she started to cry, I was like, I love you. And the other thing they were talking about was when they were talking about a lobotomy, I guess, because when they were talking about that he's still aggressive and that they could just take out these aggressive sensors in his brain. And no, we're at the end of the show. I don't want to empty a big can of worms, but where that took me in my head is that we have all these people in jail that are prisoners that take up all this space, all this money, all these resources. Why can't we just make those people get this if that was something that really works?
That was what they tried to do in the 40s and 50s.
I kind of feel like, I don't know.
Electroshock therapy and lobotomies.
I'm just saying it was something that we didn't, that I thought we would have kind of went back and forth on a little bit, and then we didn't talk about.
But you can, if I like just to play off Steph's idea that it's all in the head, is like, if you just take away that section where he's dreaming about all of this, then it'll go away. There we go. I'm supporting your
theory. And that could be why it's
theory.
so metaphysical. Like you got chess, and it's it's that it's a game. It's real. It's not.
Yeah.
Why we have chess pieces.
I wish McGoohan was alive today.
I wish we could get some crew member.
I just think he'd get a kick out of us.
Oh, I know. I mean, I agree. I think that's. I mean, I'm sure he was aware of all the people writing master's theses and books on the subject of what this really meant, and was going. It was a job.
Yeah.
I was just making a show.
It was Jesus being crucified on the cross.
That's all it is.
Right. It's all that.
That's all it ever is.
But we keep mentioning the word association game. I really like when
Are we gonna
free.
play?
Yeah. For
all.
Yeah.
So that was his own little joke.
Well, I also love death is the ultimate escape. Like I thought that was a really good on point because I think ultimately in order to
that's what Dance with the
Dance with
that
Dead.
plays back into that. It's just you.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And love is games because he
of
hates
course.
love. Yeah.
Ah, man. Any other closing thoughts before we wrap on out of here?
I'm gonna actually, at some point, probably tonight when I'm gluing 500 more gems on a Cinderella dress, I'm gonna put this episode on again because now I want to rewatch it, having our round table because I don't. Now I need to rewatch it. I'm upset because I'm like maybe I liked it for the wrong reasons and I want to go back and
You could still write it
No,
like it
I
for
don't
the
like
wrong
it. But
reasons.
no, but like
There's
I
no
said,
reason to
so I'm
wrong or right
I'm
reason
really
to
big
like
in
it.
critical discussion, and that's why especially coming before here, I like to watch and hash it out with other people so I can have an idea of like, okay, where do I want to go? But now I'm like, I really want to go back and rewatch this one. So
Well, I'm glad we could do that for you.
Yeah.
Something good came out of it.
Yeah.
and also I need something to entertain me while I'm crystallizing.
Watch it again.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think.
I will. I'll tweet about it.
Do
There
it.
you go. Speaking of Twitters, Steph Z, what's yours?
My Twitter is IAMSTEFZ. Tweet me, and I'll tweet you back.
Meredith
You can
Placco.
find me at mplaco. Oh my God, we didn't tell your story from last weekend.
Oh, so
Sorry,
real quick, I was at the
interrupt.
Coachella Music Festival last weekend, and I was having this moment where I was like dancing and enjoying the music, and then all of a sudden someone had blown up a giant white beach ball, and I was like, oh my God, Rover's coming for me! So I took a picture and I tweeted it out to some of the hosts here, and we had a good laugh about it, but it was pretty funny. That was my moment.
So if you go to Coachella, watch out for Rover.
Rover will be there.
Yep.
There's purple rovers, there's green rovers, there's white rovers.
Wow.
Rover on acid. Boom. Hashtag.
There you go. Curtis, where can
You
people
didn't
find-
say your
At
Twitter.
mplaco.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And Curtis's booger.
There you go.
I have to say that all the time now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
so.
I want you to say it one more time.
Sometimes Curtis's booger.
And Steph, so you got the Booger is back hashtag going this morning.
Oh, Booger is back to you.
Anyway, thank you for joining us yet again.
Yes.
Thank you.
Always happy to have you. Maybe I'll get a email next week. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Speaking of what are we doing?
Oh, you took that piece of paper away from us.
I know.
It's your funeral.
Yes.
We're doing that one.
Your funeral.
Which is great because that's the Nesbit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there you go. It coincides.
Isn't that the When We're Nesbits #2?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Right.
So
So we'll be doing that one. So brush up if you need to. We'll be back next Throwback Thursday.
Yes, we had
For
a
the
whole
prisoner.
bunch of hashtags going on here.
yeah.
For the Prisoner After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. Thank you once again. Let us know your thoughts and comments. After all, such a rich history to the show that we can't do it justice every week, and that's why we like interacting with you guys because it's all a conversation. We'll see you next time. Be seeing you.
Oh, I was late.
I always forget it.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Bye. See you
later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.